Hello everybody, I hope you're well and you're comfortable to listen to me talk about Buddhism, because Buddhism is a beautiful philosophy or science or spirituality. It's hard to point it down as something specific, but is a way in which we can understand this reality. If you're here in this channel, it's because you are interested in understanding this reality. And through my own channel, if you will, through my own means of how I understand this life, this world, this being that we all are, I enjoy Buddhism in general. Actually, I enjoy the root of Buddhism, which is non-duality, or the very root of what we can talk about in Buddhism is non-duality. But non-duality is present in so many other philosophies and understandings of this worldview, that everything is one. And of course, Buddhism comes out of that, and that's what I want to talk about here. Now, I'm going to give my perspective on Buddhism. You probably can watch a lot of videos on YouTube and see why Buddhism is what it is, but I'm just going to give you my understanding and why I think it's so important, especially for those seekers out there that want to understand the self, which to me is the most important thing we can understand, because anything else that we are engaging in learning depends on the self. And if we don't understand who we are first, then why would we care about understanding anything else? This is also the reason why so many people have so many issues still, even within a long time, a lifetime of learning and understanding metaphysics and spirituality and all kinds of religions. And it's because we still don't understand the true self. This is what Buddhism is about. But again, I'm talking about Buddhism, but acknowledging that the root of Buddhism is non-duality, which doesn't belong to Hinduism, doesn't belong to Christianity, doesn't belong to Taoism or Zen Buddhism. Non-duality is simply the understanding that all is one. And how we can describe reality as one really is the challenge that non-duality presents to the teacher. And this is why, of course, non-duality is present in the law of one. That's what the law of one actually means. It means that all is one. So if we guide ourselves through that, it's not even a belief, but a true understanding, just like you can understand that everything is infinite. You can't prove it, but you can talk about it, and you can play with the concept of infinity. Infinity does exist. In fact, infinity is everything, just like we are all one. But how we explain that, again, that is the expertise of the teacher. And so we have done this in the past. We have been given this, or we have discovered it. It doesn't matter how you see it. We simply know it. It's been a long time since we started discussing this world as one. We have so many examples. The Egyptians, of course, knew it. If you follow the law of one, then you know that this was the intent of the initiation process in the pyramids and the whole story. So we know that the law of one, or non-duality, has been present in our minds, in our hearts, for thousands of years. However, this video is about Buddhism, right? And what does that relate to oneness? Well, you see, Hinduism is the actual root of Buddhism, you can say, or the body in which Buddhism took out the essence to explain reality. And Hinduism, it's hard to pinpoint when they started exploring non-duality, because unlike we obsess people with writing books and keeping records of everything, what we have is that there is an oral transmission of the teachings. So it's a student to teacher sort of relationship that develops over time, and that's how the teaching is imparted. It's given to the people. And culturally, this is what developed Hinduism. Hinduism is really, it's not a religion in and of itself, it's a culture. It's a way of understanding reality, of enjoying it. But over time, and I know this happens because you can see it historically, the essence of the teaching becomes so celebrated, and I think that's the word. We celebrate the teaching so much that the essence is lost. And in this losing of the essence, then you have to create systems for people to go from the celebration to the understanding of the essence. And that's why we have yogas and all kinds of initiations within all the different sects of Hinduism. So we go through this process of trying to achieve this enlightenment, which is not complicated at all. And in fact, it is so simple that the teachers have always needed to complicate it for people to really buy into it. And we can see that historically too, because there's always a reset in which a true master says, basically, to the hell with all this nonsense, let's go straight into the teaching. And so Buddhism came out of such person, Gautama Siddhartha, which is the person who is basically attributed the title, because Buddha is a title, and Gautama Siddhartha actually achieved this title of Buddha, the awakened one. It's really what it means. And so when he achieved this, he started imparting his own teachings, his own dharma. That's what dharma means. It's a model of describing your worldview of reality based on something that is practical and that can be, it's almost scientific. I would even say that it's the most scientific method that we have, because it's guided by experience and observation and taking notes basically on what we see, what we perceive, what we experience rather. So around the year 20 or 600 BC, 2,600 years ago, bear in mind that Hinduism has been going on for about 3,000 years or so. The oldest text that I am aware of that we have is the Upanishads, which are mostly compilation of stories, mostly like the Bible, but it's not a sacred text. It's more like poetry. And indeed, Buddhism and Hinduism and non-duality can be explained only by poetry. Poetry is actually the most precise language that we have, because it's the least distorted way in which we can describe the world. And I know this would cringe or make scientists cringe, because we have invented such a sophisticated language and mathematics and all kinds of ways to explain reality from a very materialistic point of view. But this is our problem, or should I say, this is our extreme that makes us see non-duality so bizarre, because we're so materialist. We're sold on the idea that we are separate beings, that we're separate particles, we're separate parts of the universe. And so it is really hard for us to go back to our true experience, which is consciousness. But Gautama Siddhartha had a different problem. At the time, there was a lot of mythology that came out of what I call celebration of understanding reality from this beautiful point of view, which is consciousness. And yes, the celebration takes all kinds of forms. We have gods and divinities and stories and fables and myths, and all this stuff becomes very mystical, very mysterious to go into these teachings. And so Gautama said, well, he didn't say this, but this is just my way of interpreting it. He basically said, let's do away with all the mysticism and all the mythology and all of this, because Hinduism could only be understood if you were raised in India or the region at the time. You couldn't understand it any other way. If you were a foreigner and you came in, you were completely baffled by the amount of things that you were bombarded with, because you had to be born there and raised there. And even I would say with complete certainty that the people that lived there had a hard time trying to understand their own philosophy. And so they needed a reset. This is what Gautama Siddhartha did. And he did away with all the mythology and everything else. And he developed a way in which you can understand the basic, or the basis of Hinduism, the essence of it, which is really what I'm interested in my own teachings, in my own understandings of reality. I don't really care much about the stories. They are interesting to read and to find, like how Shiva and Shakti are representations of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. But I particularly don't resonate with learning that way. I like to go straight into the pragmatic aspect of things. you don't have to understand all the mythology. Just like you don't have to read the whole Bible to understand whatever you want to understand in the Bible, which is it's very cryptic. So to me, the essence of it was beautifully outlined by Gautama in his teaching, which started with the Four Noble Truths, which eventually I'll talk about. And I will actually lay a foundation for this Four Noble Truths, so you can understand concept by concept what they mean, and then we can all piece it together. So I have something prepared for that. But in terms of Buddhism, one of the things is that it's now able to be exported, if you will, to the external world. And this is why you don't see that people claim to be Hindus out of some other religion. They go into Buddhism because Buddhism has the essence compact and packed basically for people to digest it without getting into mythology. You know me, I know, you know that I love to understand the essence of things and do away with all the metaphysics and all the weird interpretations that can come out of something that is meant to be understood by its own core. So what I love is that Buddhism has this. It goes away, you know, with all the mythology and chakras. You would never hear a Buddhist talk about chakras and energy centers or about time travel or astral travel. They don't care about any of that. They only care to explain the foundation of everything. I can say, and I can have, you know, the audacity to say this, but if you understand the energy centers and you understand the densities of consciousness and the law of one, then I can tell you that understanding Buddhism, and this is why it's so essential for anybody to understand it, this goes into 7 density understanding. The view of 7 density as is holographically created in the violet ray, the crown chakra. But again, not to talk about Buddhism and include some metaphysics here, the point is that understanding the self is the ultimate understanding. It's the ultimate goal, if you will, of this reality, is to know who you are. Once you truly know who you are, you have no more questions. You have no more seeking, no more desires. There is no more need for anything. And I argue very vehemently that we are honestly always looking for the self. No matter how we disguise it, we can disguise it in science or in relationships or with religions or with any sort of seeking that we have. We're always trying to understand the self. How do we know that? Because the people that finally get to the point of understanding the self, this is what enlightenment actually means, then they all share the same lifestyle, which is no more seeking. I understand the universe. I know who I am. And this goes for those who follow the law of one. It trickles down into every other energy center from the top to the bottom. You understand true honesty. You understand unconditional love. You understand the unity of things, of course, and you understand the ego, which is the most pesky thing we have in our whole Western life. So that's why Buddhism to me is so important. But even Buddhism still has, over time, kind of ramified into so many things that, because the teaching was given from teacher to student, over time teachers had different ways to teach Buddhism. And so we have different ways to observe. And another thing is that Buddhism wasn't created and maintained over time by the same teaching of Gautama. Gautama actually gave his teachings, his Dharma, and over time it has been polished. It has always been gone through the rigorous process of challenging it. Anybody who challenges it from a really philosophical point of view, then they're able to improve it. That's why we have what I would say is the ultimate expression so far in Buddhism, Zen Buddhism. That is the ultimate expression that we have had over time, over a couple of thousand years ago already, that Zen Buddhism became the way in which we can understand Buddhism without dharmas or anything. No books, no teachings, no nothing. Just immediate, sudden enlightenment, which is really what Zen is. So if you can understand all of this, you see how the process of Buddhism is not really some sort of doctrine that people need to understand and they need to read and follow the texts and commandments or precepts and all of that. You don't have to go through precepts, you don't have to do anything. So Buddhism has, of course, improved, and non-duality has always been at the core of this teaching. And I would say, completely confident too, that we have given a new refinement, which is the direct path. That's what I teach. The direct path goes away with even Zen as a way of going strict into practices and activities, which is really what Zen started to ramify again into the different schools that came out. And so with all this ramification, we need another reset that I keep talking about. And I'll make a video talking about too the different resets. And this reset was done basically at the beginning of the 20th century by somebody called Ramana Maharshi, which you should know about. And I'll probably talk about him as well a lot, because to me, he's the founder of the direct path, the way in which we can go through self-inquiry and understand the I am process. Who am I? Understanding the self is the ultimate key to understanding the universe. So this is the teaching that, of course, I follow, and you would see that in my conversations and my explanations. I always go with this method because I think is the best way to help somebody who has been raised in the Western world, who has no idea of non-duality, has no idea even of some sort of religion, and they just have their own experience. And guess what? Non-duality is expressed through pure experience. Everything else is just a way that the teacher has to teach this essence of non-duality. And that can be done through Buddhism. That's why I love talking about it, because it does lay the foundation, the scientific understanding of this reality. But the direct path goes straight into the experience, so the person becomes its own laboratory to understand the self and to understand reality. So that's all I have today. I'm going to make different videos on this topic because I love Buddhism, I love non-duality, and there's so much to be talked about in direct relationship to all the metaphysics that we enjoy in this channel and everywhere else. I think it's a great complement, like I've been saying for a while already, for the study of the law of one. Anybody who studies the law of one needs to understand non-duality. That is the mystic path of the law of one and of any other system of belief system or system of belief. The Kabbalah is the mystic part of Jews. Simple as that. Christianity had its own ways, which was the Gnostic way, but that was lost. We have all different types of mysticism that is the way in which we understand our own selves and reality. So expect more of that. I hope you enjoy it. And if you have any suggestions on Buddhism, Hinduism, or any of these concepts, leave them in the comments and maybe I'll make a video about it. All right. Thank you again for watching. I'll see you in the next one.